Onassis Foundation. Dublab.
Welcome to the Quarantine Tapes, a daily podcast from Onassis LA and dublab. Hosted by Paul Holdengräber, this series chronicles shifting paradigms in the era of social distancing.
Yes, hello.
Hello, Werner Herzog. It's a pleasure to speak with you today, and thank you.
Good morning, yes.
Good morning to you, and thank you for launching our quarantine tapes. We're beginning the series now in these very troubled times, and I'd like to start with a quotation by Pascal that I know Blaise Pascal is very close to you, and Pascal in the Pensée said something that has very much been on my mind now, partly because it's taken a whole new resonance in these times. Pascal said that all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. And I'm wondering how you might react to that.
Well, we have to take time to absorb it because it's a very deep statement, but there's a practical immediate response. Just go and do reading. We have lost our nexus with good books or poetry. We have lost it pretty much out of our lives. We are too much into tweets and Facebook quick notes and things like that. So it's a wonderful time for reading.
You mean this time now that we're living through? Do you think that the effects of this global pandemic will have an effect of bringing people more into an interior life?
Inevitably so, yes. And of course, there has to be discipline. There has to be discipline because we are not in our regular lives, in the experience with reality. We are not made for understanding a mathematical principle that is in effect now, a geometrical progression of the disease. You see, we are linear in our daily experience. You meet one person in the street and then the next and then the next and the next. But what the virus does is a different mathematical form. You meet 32 persons, but the next person is not 33, but twice as many, 64. And the next one, 2 days later, is not 65, but 128. You see what I mean? We do not have everyday experience with a geometrical progression.
So,
and because of that, we have to be disciplined. We have to understand that there's a principle out there that is not in our regular lives' expectations.
And how should we be disciplined? And differently put, how are you disciplined?
I am not going out unless there's an absolute necessity, period.
Could you foresee this coming?
No, but I have speculated more about what would happen to the human race if there was no internet anymore for a longer period of time. And I've made a film, and of course it would probably be the doom of modern civilization. Or I've speculated about a big volcanic event or a catastrophic impact of a meteorite, for example, a volcanic event, which would obscure the sky for a whole decade, and that would be really, really serious for almost the entire amount of the human race.
I remember in a conversation you and I had in London so many years ago, a decade ago, really, you speculated what would happen if electricity stopped working in the city of London.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Sure.
now we are in a situation within a week that has changed habits. And I'm wondering if you think, I mean, however difficult it is a question to ask in this context where so many people are suffering, if you think this will, in a way, reboot us or make us think differently or go more deeply into ourselves or, change us in one form or another.
Well, I hope for it. It should bring the best out of us. And it can. Yesterday I saw on TV a volunteer in Seattle who was somehow receiving a virus similar to coronavirus, and some sort of test vaccine is going to be used on him. And I think this is heroic. He gets a disease and tests an insecure way to get rid of it. You see, that's the best, the most civil person. And I remember the face of the man, totally civil, wonderful man. He should get, these people should get the Nobel Prize in medicine. The guinea pigs, the human volunteer guinea pigs. Give them the Nobel Prize right away before the committee even starts to convene.
If it can convene.
Pardon?
If it can convene.
Yeah.
You know, we're living through it. What's so extraordinary is the very institutions we need the most, the places we need the most to convene and come together, we can't. And I think what this has brought to the forefront to some extent is just how much in one sense we need other people.
Yeah, sure, of course, and what can I say? But we need other people who respond with warmth, who respond with affection, who respond with giving us a familiarity that we normally do not have between neighbors, for example. Across the street, we have close relationship to our neighbors, but now they are like family.
Right, so it creates a new form of conviviality. And you was talking about reading, and I know you have a dictum that what we really need to do, most of all, I'll have you say it, because you say it better than anyone.
Well, I can only repeat, read.
And in this period, Werner,
yeah.
What might we benefit reading at this moment?
Oh, whatever. I do not want to dictate anything, but go beyond the tweets and go beyond the Facebook short exchanges and go beyond the chat rooms and don't read the chat rooms. Just go and read the things that you always wanted to read and never did it. You have the chance now. You know,
it's very interesting at this moment. Some books have become extremely popular. For instance, The Plague by Albert Camus. People are...
that's interesting, yes. Well, that's a quintessential book because it deals with a deep human aspect of it, with a philosophical aspect of it, with absurdity and nihilism reigning and still doing the right thing.
Yeah, and you know I mean, there's a whole list of books that are being submitted now: Saramago, Camus, Boccaccio. You know, people are even turning to the Greeks to think about,
Yeah.
how did they in a way deal with pandemics and with plagues. And I think so much also of some of your films which have dealt directly with isolation, be it Into the Abyss or Death Row or The Enigma of Caspar Hauser. So isolation is a theme that has been with you for forever, one might say.
Well, isolation is one thing, but the deeper step is an existential solitude, and that's what what I'm more after. That's more fascinating for me.
How so?
And Caspar Hauser is about an existential solitude, and my new feature film, which I shot in Japan, Family Romance, is about deep solitudes, where people rent friends that are absent. There are agencies who rent friends and family members missing. And it's something which is coming at us with or without coronavirus.
The question I think that is on everybody's mind is, how will life be when this too will pass?
It will resume, but there will be a cultural memory, like we have a cultural memory of the European plagues in 1338, 40 or so. That there is some sort of a deep echo inside of us, and this will be renewed. We will understand that our collective existence is a fragile one, and our presence on this planet is fragile.
And nature has the last word.
Not only nature, sometimes we can have the last words. We can inflict our own doom upon us. But ultimately, it's nature that does the job. It's microbes, a very big meteorite hitting, and then it's going to be over.
I remember so vividly when we once spoke, and you spoke precisely of all the organisms that will survive us, that we as a species will disappear so much quicker.
Yeah, of course, there are more robust species out there. Reptiles, of course, they are much more robust and had a much longer life in evolution. Or cockroaches, of course, they can even withstand a nuclear blast. They can absorb radioactivity. And then, of course, microbes 2 kilometers underground, who are in a state of suspended animation. And they may come to life and do something funny to us.
Something that comes through my mind now these days is to all these new forms of conviviality that in a way were exotic until most recently, like the phone. People have not used the phone the way they're using it now. It's coming back in some form or fashion because we feel the need to hear the grain of the voice of other people.
Yeah, well, I see that, but since I do not have a cell phone, you're calling me on a landline. I do have an old-fashioned landline with a cable into the wall. So, but I have meaningful conversations via email, for example, or discourse via email. But I'm not on social media, of course.
And never will be.
No, that's not my thing. I'm into, as I said, into reading, into poetry, into other forms of communication. My kitchen table, holding 6. That's my social medium. That's my platform. And I do believe that what we are seeing now may originate new forms or old forms of culture, like voice conversation, which is not practiced that much anymore. Or like in Boccaccio's Decameron, it's like beginning of culture. The plague hit Florence. Young people flee to the countryside into an abandoned estate. And now storytelling begins. Everyone has to tell a story each night. And it goes for exactly 10 days. You've got 100 stories. And it's like a beginning of culture, beginning of storytelling.
So in your wildest dreams, which I know you have during the day and not at night, in your wildest dreams, the beginning of culture after this pandemic would look like what?
People huddling together and sharing warmth and sharing stories, singing songs. That's what culture is all about.
You know,
and a collective agitation of mind. And everybody around me, that whomever I see, is in a state of agitation. And that's a good side effect of what we are witnessing.
What are you reading for the moment?
Quite a few things. I'm rereading an obscure Greek historian, Theodoros Siculus, for specific reasons, and I've gone into reading Alexander von Humboldt, his travel to South America in 1801, 1802. Very fascinating, to the Orinoco, into Mexico and other places. And I'm reading poetry, Pasternak. So I have a whole bouquet, and I want to go to read the book of Job again. I've read it, reread it. And I want to reread Daniel Defoe's Journal of the Plague Year.
Yeah.
1722 or so, but the plague year was 1665 and he was a little child. But he writes as if he had been there. It's all invented, and yet it is the deepest, most accurate, most truthful description of a plague year.
How is that
and
possible?
Well, he researched a lot, but it's imagination also, and research. And indelible images. He describes a big square outside of Parliament where there's a wheat field all of a sudden. Corn is growing, wheat is growing. And I do remember, I have flashes of images from Daniel Defoe. And in my opinion, it points to what I've always tried to find, a deeper truth that is partially achieved by invention. It's an illuminated look at the plague.
Look at it head on.
Yes, and also through a detour in imagination and invention. And you see the deeper truth because the deeper truth is an invented one, like Michelangelo's Pietà. Jesus in her lap is the tormented man, a face of a 33-year-old man. His mother is 17. Of course, that's a gross distortion. The mother of a 33-year-old man is not 17. But it gives us a deeper truth about the Virgin Mary and the Man of Sorrows. And sometimes, I came across some, I have to tell you, it's wonderful. I did a film, family romance, in Japan about where you can rent friends. And so after I did the film, the leading character who runs the agency was interviewed by NHK, the national TV. And he was asked, can you provide us one of your clients? And he said, yeah, there's somebody who has been in deep solitude and he rented a friend from us. And it turned out that this client was actually also an actor, an imposter from the stable of the company. And the TV station had to apologize in public, which is terrible in Japan. And Ishii, the leading character, he was reprimanded for it, and he defends himself. And now comes the interesting part. He says, if I had sent them a real client, a man deeply in solitude, asking for renting a friend, he would, in order to save his face, have told a lie. He would have told a benign version of his depth of solitude. He would not have spoken the truth. But I sent you an imposter, and this imposter has done the job 220 times. And he knows what he's talking about, and he gave you the real truth. And I think he's totally right. The imposter is the one who gives the truth, not the real person who asked for an imposter.
It's an extraordinary story, and this film is coming out now.
Yes, that's why. Well, I'm affected like everyone else. Not only this film, I have 2 theatrical premieres of 2 separate films coming up. One in the United Kingdom, Family Romance LLC, I think next week. Of course, it's not going to happen. And in the United States, Nomad, in the Footsteps of Bruce Chatwin, the film about Bruce Chatwin, also a theatrical premiere. Forget about it. It's not going to happen, but I take it with stoicism. It is as it is. The films will outlive the virus.
What do you think Chatwin might have said at this moment?
That's hard to say. He would have been absolutely fascinated. And he would have been the one who would have started a new Decameron, a new Boccaccio, force everyone to tell the stories.
Do you think you might do that?
No. Well, I do have quite a few stories coming at me with vehemence, and I'm just trying to ward them off and giving them some shape and have an organized approach to them. I cannot do everything at once.
Werner,
but we'll see wonderful stories coming out.
Werner, it's such a pleasure always to talk to you, even in these dark times, always inspiring. And I look forward to which stories you will be telling after this pandemic is over.
Yeah, and good luck with this format that you have, and hang on in, stay safe. All right.
I will do my best. You too. All the best.
Bye-bye, yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Goodbye.
To support this show and Dublab's progressive programming, go to dublab.com/support.